Hello and welcome to the final part of my three-part series on filters in landscape photography. If you remember, we covered circular polarizing filters in part 1 and we covered the solid ND grad filters in part 2. Both of those are available to watch now, so please go and do it, well, perhaps after this video, but please go and watch them. So today we're going to do the graduated neutral density filters, and we'll cover again why we use them, what they are, and how you use them. Okay, so the solid ND filters, they were called solid because they presented a solid amount of light filtration all the way across the filter. One of the things you'll notice with hopefully you can notice that if I hold it up there maybe. Yes, so this is a graduated neutral density filter. You can see that here it starts quite hard and goes soft towards the top. But before I get into that, let's just cover there's essentially three sort of different types of neutral density grad that you can use. So I'm going to very quickly go through the different types and then we're going to talk about why and how they're used. So this is a grad, and if I hold it up here you can say it gently goes from dark to light. These are 100mm slot type, as we talked about last time. The slot type fit within a slot on the front of your camera that screws to your lens, as opposed to the round type which screw directly into your lens. The other type we have is a hard edge. So as you can see, it doesn't go from light or dark to light, it's just dark all the way across. I think that's a 3-stop. And then this is a reverse of that. So I guess if I hold them both up, you should see, yeah, one goes dark to light, one goes light to dark. They've got slightly different uses. And we'll cover that off with a funky diagram that I have created. So let's start with the solid, the hard-edged grad filter. So hard-edged grad filter, what's it used for? So the sky is, I say always, pretty much always darker than the ground. As I say, this I think is a 3-stop hard edge grad. It's a reasonable assumption to say that the sky is about 3 stops more than the ground, and essentially how you use these is you slot these in front of your lens, but you line up the hard edge with the horizon. So as you can see there, if this was my image that I could see through my sensor, I've lined that up with my horizon, and that's going to provide 3 stops of light, or 3 stops of filtration, but along the ground it's going to let all of that light in. So that means then that I have a lot less work to do post-processing. I've done a lot of it in camera. So that's my hard edge grad. And I think probably as you can see here, my horizon is perfectly flat. So that could be a C, or it could be a very uninteresting picture. So my next example is perhaps some mountains. They could be mountains, they could be a dinosaur's back. So in this case, my hard-edged filter would be no good because I'd be filtering across the mountain range. Absolutely no use. But I've got my soft-edged filter. Might be 3 stops at the top, and it goes down to nothing by the time it gets to the midway point. You line that up, and as you can see there, just start to cover the mountains. And so sky usually brightest at the top here. By the time you go over the mountains, there's less of an effect there. So again, giving you more in-camera control over your exposure. And then I guess we're asking ourselves, well, what's the reverse one for? Well, here's my even more artistic view of a sunset. So you can see it's a red sky, the sun's setting, and what we do here is we line up our hard edge with the horizon, and it's not very good here because it's so dark, but you can see what it's doing is filtering out the very brightest bit of the sky, which is where the sun's setting, and as we get to the top where there's less light, then it goes to 0. And I guess, you know, the reason that these are 200mm is these slot in here like this, and it allows some control over exactly how far you put these depending on where the horizon is in relation to your lens. And even, not so good with this one, but you can imagine if you had a wonky horizon, you could line it up this way, which gives you then the ability to, you know, filter against that wonky horizon. So that's how those work. I think one thing I would say is that these are the types of filter that I don't actually use very much. And the reason I don't use them is I never seem to be able to line the blessed things up with my horizon. I never seem to be able to get the result I want, and I can actually, you know, unless it's a very extreme dynamic range difference between the sky and the ground, there's other techniques I can use without using these to get the right exposure. So to show you why I don't use the graduated filters on my camera very much anymore, I've come into Lightroom to show you how we can process an image to achieve much the same effect that we can do within a camera, either using those hard-edged or the soft-edge grads. This is a picture of Ashdown House. It's in, I think it's in Berkshire, and National Trust property. I love going around our old houses. This interesting house in the Dutch style, but fairly irrelevant to this. So let's get on with it. But the reason I picked it was what you can see here. It's a cloudy day, clouds in the sky, but as I said, I think earlier, the sky is generally a lot brighter than the ground and the foreground objects. And so what you can see is we've lost quite a lot of the detail up here. You know, it's just large areas of grey up here. So, you know, we need to do something about that. And if you use the graduated filter tool, so we grab that and which is here. Yeah, grab that. And if I pull that down and hold shift, it'll give me a straight line across here, and as you can see, this will show us in the pink here what is going to be affected by moving any of the sliders. And so in this instance, down to this line here, a full effect. Down to this line here, it starts to fade, and as we get to the bottom, it's having no effect at all. And what is obvious then is that this is going to affect the buildings as much as the sky. Lightroom, from I think the last version of Lightroom, this is Lightroom 2019, I think from the last version it introduced the idea of a range mask. And if you switch that on, and I use the luminance setting there, so range mask luminance, if I switch on the show luminance mask, then you can see more clearly what's going to be affected by me moving the sliders on the right here. So as you can see, the house is going to be affected quite a lot, and if I turn that off and I do that, yes, you know, obviously exaggerated, but you can see that the house is affected just as badly or just as much as the sky. So let's reset all of these, and so turn the luminance mask back on, and you can move this range here. So this range slider basically says what luminance value it's going to affect, and I only want to affect the brightest bits of my image. So I'll move that to there, and as you can see then we're going to affect the brightest bits of the sky and not really any effect on the building. And I can probably even drag this down now a little bit further. Okay, so let's turn the luminance mask off again. Yep, thank you. And we will adjust the exposure down, let's say half a stop, a bit more than half a stop. Yeah, so 3/4 of a stop. And as you see, we've pulled some more detail out of the sky. And then if we drag the highlights down, we are getting more detail in the clouds. So over here, there's detail in the clouds. There's a little bit of graduation here, and if we add some clarity, you can see, you know, the effect. Quite a lot of, I guess, drama goes into the sky, and so you can see, if I switch that off, we've not got very much detail in the sky, and switch it on, all of a sudden you know, we've captured some of this, and we've got the drama of the cloudy sky with the house in the foreground. And so if I click done, we might even want to add some exposure to the overall image now. So there you go. So I hope that's sort of shown you what you can do with the grads in Lightroom, and why not necessarily you want to carry your graduated filters up the hill, or, you know, around the country house. So that's the end of my last episode in this series on filters within landscape photography. As a reminder, we did circular polarizing filters in that first episode. We did the solid ND filters in the second episode, and we've just done the graduated ND filters in this episode. If you have any comments, leave them below. If you liked, please like. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.